The process of briefing. So without much ado, let me invite Honorable Minister Mchangwa to present the briefing.
Thanks again for coming to the 23rd meeting decision matrix of Cabinet. With me this afternoon, I've got Honorable Ziambi, who is the Minister of Justice. And on that side, we have Honorable S.B. Moyo, our Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. And next to him, there is Minister Honorable Chasi, who is the Minister of Energy and Power Development. This morning, Cabinet met and approved the Attorney General's Office Amendment Bill as presented by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. The proposed amendment seeks to align the current Act to the Constitution by providing the following: the appointment of deputies of the Attorney General, the establishment of the Attorney General as the chairman of the Attorney General's Office Board, and the incorporation of law officers and legal advisors in different ministries under the administration of the Attorney General. Cabinet also received a report, a proposal by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development on reforms for the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, Zim Parks. The proposed Zim Parks turnaround strategy principally seeks to address the prevailing state of poor corporate governance, operational ineffectiveness, and the suboptimal utilization of the resources under Zim Parks. Cabinet accordingly resolved as follows: that the commercial division of Zim Parks be hived off to a special purpose vehicle in order to unlock the value in the commercial assets currently owned by Zim Parks through joint venture arrangements with private sector partners. It also resolved that an initial capital investment equivalent to 11.9 million be injected towards the acquisition of modern anti-poaching equipment, support equipment, operational vehicles, support for national parks management activities, and maintenance of infrastructure. It also resolved that the RTGS 21.5 million debt owed by Zim Parks be restructured so as to allow the authority more time to pay off the debt, and that the necessary legislative review be undertaken so as to inter alia strengthen the management and operations of Zim Parks, as well as to ensure the balance between the need to guarantee wildlife protection and to provide for other competing land uses. And finally, that the governance structures of the authority be strengthened in accordance with the provisions of the Public Entities and Corporate Governance Act. That was the report from the Minister of Finance on Zim Parks. Then Cabinet received a report from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade on the recent forum on China-Africa Cooperation FOCAC coordinators meeting, which was held in Beijing, in China, from 24th to the 25th June 2019. The objective of the meeting was to review the implementation of the 2019-2020 Action Plan. Cabinet expressed great appreciation for the offer of a free grant of RMB, which is the Chinese money, 400 million, which is equivalent to about US 60 million, by the People's Republic of China towards the recovery and reconstruction program arising from the Cyclone Idai disaster. A further 6 million RMB, which is about US 870,000 US dollars. This is a grant which was also extended to Zimbabwe for the acquisition of forestry equipment. Then we also received a report on the energy and power supply situation in the country. The Minister of Energy and Power Development, Honorable Chasi, briefed Cabinet on the prevailing fuel and power supply situation in the country. The Minister informed Cabinet that during his engagement with players in the fuel supply chain, it had become very clear that the sector was still riddled with business malpractices which militated against the smooth supply of the product to the market. As part of the measures to address this unsavory state of affairs, a system to track the movement and distribution of fuel was already at the initial stage of installation. Pertaining to power supply, the minister briefed Cabinet that the ministry was already working on an integrated power development strategy amid indications that several investors were quite keen to invest in power generation projects in the country. The minister is also currently assessing the status of the various energy projects so that where necessary, licenses can be cancelled and new bidders invited for those projects that have not yet taken off the ground. The minister is also working on a framework to ensure that the suppliers of liquefied gas sell the product to consumers in safe places and at fair prices rather than the prevailing exorbitant prices for this product. Then there was also a discussion on the introduction of monocurrency. Cabinet noted with satisfaction that the generality of Zimbabweans have positively embraced the recent introduction of the monocurrency, which had prompted the massive fall of the parallel market rate. Cabinet underscored the need to continue addressing the concerns by various sections of the citizenry through timelessly availing the necessary information and the implementation of the necessary supportive and confidence-building measures. Cabinet also calls on the business sector and service providers to be considerate and humane in the manner they peg their prices. It is our common interest to create a competitive and business-friendly environment which fosters investor confidence and decent livelihoods to our people. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. There it is, the numbers. I'm not going to overextend like last 2 weeks. Yes, please, your name and the organization. But,
so that you don't memorize me. But thank you very much for the question, Silas, regarding when are we going to see an end to our power challenges and fuel challenges. The short question is when we begin to work together and to put our national interest at the forefront. With regards to power, there are a number of very key determinants of our resolution of this very difficult situation. The first one is that we all must pay our bills. We cannot fail to pay 1.2 billion to a key utility in the country, but be happy to make all manner of demands on it. So we need to pay our bills. Government has provided leadership in this respect by paying the bills that government departments have consumed over a long period of time. So it has also affected payment to ESCOM. We need a culture locally and internationally to meet our obligations. The only legitimate response to a debt is to pay. If you can't pay, you negotiate with the creditor. So that's where we would like to get to. Another key determinant is ensuring that on the consumption side, we're all responsible. We all should be cognizant of the fact that power is extremely expensive. Extremely expensive, and in our consumption of it, whether it's in a government department or in a private organization or at home, we need to make sure that we are conscious of the impact of our consumption of power on the entire economy. So it's a composite relationship for all of us and I have no doubt that you are paying your bills. We are going to manage the demand side. We've started with my ministry. We've installed a meter. We're developing a program to install meters in government departments, and there is no debate or argument about that. Power is not like air that we're breathing now. We don't know how much, we don't know the value. With power, we know exactly what we owe and what we consume a day. Similarly, the same applies to fuel. I think the Minister of Information in the initial remarks on my portfolio did indicate that there are still numerous malpractices. I'm going to continue to engage the industry. I was with them yesterday. There are proposals that they've made, which once we've agreed on certain positions, we'll be able to communicate. So we want to work together. We want to create a fair environment that allows business people to make money and without making the public suffer. So as I indicated, we still have malpractices in the industry. I warned the industry yesterday that the hour will come when we talk about renewal of licenses. But if we need to do it earlier, we will take the necessary action to protect the interests of everyone in Zimbabwe who consumes fuel. But I must add that I'm very happy that we have an excellent working relationship at the moment and want to build on that. We believe that we can resolve a lot of our issues if we continue to work together. So the short answer is I can't give you a time and date because I'm not in control of somebody, for example, who accesses foreign currency from our national system, buys fuel, and decides that is not going to play according to the rules. I can't determine that. But this matter is urgent, and we are taking or applying all efforts to make sure that we normalize the situation. We all need to be working together. With regards to the ZESA payment, as I said, when you owe, you must be there to acknowledge your debt, and if you need a payment plan, you make the payment plan. We have paid 10 million out of a significant amount of money. Zimbabwe will always be here. Zimbabwe will always need power, so we're going to engage our brothers and sisters in South Africa to say we have paid, what arrangements can we make. They are fully appreciative of the challenges that we are facing, and I'm not in a position at the moment to say precisely how much we are going to get from them. I would be very happy if we're going to get sufficient power to extinguish the load shedding that we're all currently experiencing. The load shedding matter should be a basis for us to work together in recognition of the fact that it's very difficult to discriminate. Even if you go to the Minister of Energy's home, right now, there is no power. So all of us, regardless of our political affiliations, we meet where power is necessary. So let's come together. We're very open to suggestions, and I've met many members of the public, organizations, individuals. Yesterday, I had a conference call with a group of engineers in South Africa who made very interesting suggestions to us. I've met students who have come up with contraptions that can help us to deal with some of these matters. Tracking system, this is very important. I think that we have been regulating in darkness. You can't regulate something unless you understand it. So we already have a prototype which has been installed at CMED, very robust in my view. I'm going to analyze it further and see what other parameters we can put in there. Government would like to understand the fuel situation as soon as fuel gets into this country. As Minister of Energy, I would like to know if there is a need for me to do that at any given time. Who picked up how much fuel from Masasa? What vehicle did that? And where did the fuel go to with respect to service stations? I want to be able to interrogate a service station from my office or from home on my laptop or iPad and know, because many members of the public tell me that this service station served 3 people and they say the fuel is finished. The era of lies in this sector is soon coming to an end, and we are going to do whatever is necessary to ensure that the inconvenience that people are experiencing should only happen if we cannot do something about it. So we are also looking at a rational distribution, not only of fuel by type, but rational distribution of service stations themselves. We would like the sector, and I've discussed this with them, that at any given time we need to be sensitive to the economic activities that are happening in the country. And so our fuel must speak to those situations. What do I mean? I mean that when we are in the wheat growing season like now, and farmers need diesel, we must have, we must be able to discuss and agree on what is needed where. There is no point in having thousands of liters of diesel in an area where, for example, there is very little activity of an economic nature. So we want to get to that level where we direct resources where they are needed at a particular time. But we also want to be able to determine where a service station should be on an informed basis. We need evidence to know consumption patterns, and this system is going to help us to do that. This system, together with other measures that government is going to take, is going to bring order in the fuel sector. We need order. If we don't have order, we'll have perennial challenges that we're not able to resolve. Our disconnections. We are not afraid of doing this. We want to encourage members of the public to pay. But even if there is no disconnection, when we don't pay our bills, we are going to be shut down by those who supply us, as happened with ESCOM. We'll be shutting ourselves down. So ZESA or myself or government, we don't need to do anything. If we just sit, we'll get to that point where we do not have that. We would like the public support, commerce and industry, local authorities, all those bodies, all significant amounts of money to ZESA. ZESA must be viable. ZESA must be viable so that it can interact with other economic or commercial players on the basis of its own balance sheet. The 1.2 billion weighs that organization down significantly, and would like it to operate on its own and get assistance from government in very exceptional circumstances. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We say the generality of Zimbabweans have embraced the removal of the multi-currency transaction in local transactions. From the time the statutory instrument 142 of 2019 was introduced, we have seen, we've been actually interacting with a lot of public. We've been making sure that we also unpack the statutory instrument so that all our our populace can understand what is in that in statutory instrument. And I must tell you that it has been very well embraced. a lot of Zimbabweans have not been having access to US dollars. Those who have been working, they're actually receiving local currency. And any Zimbabwean who is proud to be Zimbabwean is very proud of the fact that now we do have our own sovereign currency. So the issues, I was in Chipinge yesterday with the president, where he went to open up the Tangata Road, and I must say there was a big crowd who was really, they were very, very happy to, and expressed their happiness to the president that finally we do now have our sovereign currency. And we have seen, as I rightly said earlier on, that has actually brought down the market rates. So these are issues. As for the why most banks have different rates, this is an issue which was raised in the debate, and the Minister of Finance is actually still doing his interrogations. Can you be coming back to you? You know, as the ministry, we can always organize a meeting for any questions you may want towards the Minister of Finance. Thank you. Thank you very much. And the Minister of International Foreign Affairs and International Trade would like to supplement.
Thank you very much. The question on gas, this is a very important matter. We have challenges with power, and so many members of the public are resorting to the use of gas. And it's a source of energy that we need to popularize so that people have got alternatives. Some who may not even have electricity at their residences can be able to. It will also save us from deforestation. This is an area that has not been regulated. We need to come up with a framework. We're working on that. We prefer solutions that carry players and stakeholders together with the government. So I met this sector, I think last week. We agreed on the matters that we need to address. We're going to have a follow-up meeting. But in addition to that, we also need to create the necessary regulatory environment that encourages investment in this area. So we are also actively engaged in that respect. Of major concern, as I indicated to you, was the question of pricing. There are all sorts of prices. Some people still want to live in the black market era with complete insensitivity to the public needs. When we issue licenses, as I've said before, it's because we've considered the public interest, and we think and believe that the licensee is going to comply with the conditions. Similarly, as we go forward, those who are in this business must expect that government requires order. Some are playing with some of the products. They are sourced from all manner of places. We need to regulate the appliances, the tanks that they use, and their repairs, because those are very dangerous units. And so we're coming up with a legal framework that is going to be dealing with that. Perfect kids clubs. I don't know how you know what I have in my briefcase. I'm really not interested in lists of individuals. I'm interested in the ballpark figure that is there. If local authorities owe 350 million, we can't go on like that. If us as the public continue to consume power without payment, we cannot expect that this is going to go on forever. It won't. D-Day will come, and it's our responsibility to ensure that we do not travel on that road. I've emphasized to ZESA the need for the debt to be collected from everyone. I'm not in a position to say I'm energy minister, so don't include me in the repayments or anything of that sort. We all need to pay our debts to assure ourselves of power. I also want to make a specific public appeal to commerce and industry. They also owe significant amounts of money, and we would, without power, they can't operate. And when they don't operate, life becomes very difficult for all of us. So I'm going to be engaging them to understand their take on this issue and their plans regarding payment as an industry, and to also to encourage them to engage ZESA on this very specific issue. You say that you are affected even though you are paid. We need that to stop. There are people who are in less advantageous positions than all of us here, who have no idea what is happening, but who are affected in even more serious circumstances than us. So there will be no kid clubs. I'm not a kid, so I don't have kid clubs. If it needs us to get to the point of knuckle bear, we have to do that. I need that money to come to ZESA. And when it comes to ZESA, we want it to be applied to situations that will increase or improve our generation of power or our conservation of power. Conservation, I mean, we need more money to buy meters, many meters. And I need to agree with ZESA on the deployment program for those meters. But most importantly, organization is issues of governance. An organization is porous procurement procedures. Those acquisitions or procurement processes will feed into our tariff. And we want to insulate the public from the inefficiency of an organization. So those that may have played a role in making us get to this situation, they really should know that we are not going to take it lying down. Everybody who is responsible for whatever they have done must answer for it. ZESA payment, somebody wanted me to say, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Did you mind just coming back? I didn't mind.
Before that, my question was, last week you told us that you had paid 10 million to ESCO, and then it turned out that it was not true. Then could be this an indication that there could be a disharmony in the government? And if not, what then pressured you to tell us that you had paid?
I wasn't pressured. The reason why we're here is because government wants the public and you to have information. So I was not pressured about that, neither did I lie. We don't, and if you ask yourself what would be the motive for me to say that, to lie that we've paid, and at any rate the payment has been made. And so we're simply facilitating a situation where you get information regarding what is happening. There is no disharmony whatsoever. We work cordially, we are extremely happy working together. We cooperate and help each other in many, many instances that may not even be in the public domain. Then the apology, I didn't get it.
No, the same person will answer the minister.
That's how we asked you to.
Yes, I did.
There's no need to apologize. You've already explained.
Oh, okay.
You've already explained.
All right, if he's happy, thank you.
No. If the Honorable Minister, who I so respect, does apologize.
The amount has been paid.
I want to thank you. I think you have answered adequately to those questions. There is one question which is remaining, which is from the Sabuchamba, and it was directed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International. Just coming back.
In 2018, His Excellency the President attended the FOCAC meeting in Beijing. And that FOCAC meeting came up with action plans, which are called Beijing action plans, and Beijing initiatives, which are about 8. And it was in that FOCAC meeting that a 60 billion facility was then presented, and where the rest of Africa was to access in terms of their financing and funding. But that is it may. The main purpose of this visit to Beijing this time was for the foreign ministers to go and coordinate the implementation and the effecting of this whole process, which was agreed upon by the summit last year. So this is exactly what we went and did. But you must be clear already that China is already funding a lot of projects in this country, and it is probably one of the major investors in the country. We are talking about 1878 power station, which is 600 megawatts. They've just finished Kariba South, and they finished Victoria Falls Airport, and now they are on the Harare Robert Mugabe International Airport. And we are even talking about the Tele1 project, which was an agreement of that nature of 71 million was signed recently by the Minister of Finance. And there are so many other investors in the different sectors of the economy and in the mining sector and so forth and so forth. So what I can say is Chinese money is working in this country. Now, over and above that, they have even gone further to indicate, as was presented earlier on here, that there was a gratis to support of 400 million RMB, which is about $60 million for the reconstruction and development resulting from the cyclone Idai. And we have got also a facility which was signed, which is about $870,000 to support the forestry operations. So, in as far as the funding of infrastructure in this country from China, that is exactly what is happening. And we have, of course, presented further projects to them within the framework of the 8 Beijing initiatives and within the framework of that FOCAC meeting, so that we can continuously access, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you.